All right, guys, thank you for joining me once again. I hope that today's video will be some form of ponderable meditation for you. If it makes you think, encourages you, lifts your spirits at all, or challenges the way you live, leave a comment down below and tell me how. If you can relate to any of this in any way whatsoever, leave a comment and let everybody else chime in too, because we can learn from each other. Iron sharpens iron, right? And that's what I want this forum to do. So, a couple of videos ago, I talked about not frittering your life away, not dawdling it away so that you are someday just put on a shelf and somebody looks at you and go, oh wow, isn't he still or she still pretty? It's important to use up our time, our resources, and our energy in this life so that we don't have enormous regret. We're going to have some regret. On some level, we're going to have some regret. That's to be expected. It's not to be feared, but it's just part of life. But you don't want to have enormous regret. You want to know that you put your best foot forward. So before we get into the meat of the topics I'm going to present today, I'm going to share something with you, just a few lines from a book I read and finished not too long ago called Ignore Everybody. It was written by Hugh MacLeod, and he had a lot of good things to say. It was mainly geared toward people who want to exercise their creative powers. And he wanted you to think just a little bit differently so that you can hear above the din of all the influencers that are out there in this world in whatever way they may come to us, okay? So here's what he had to say. And one of these, he has a lot to say. I'm only going to share a couple things with you and then probably revisit this later on. But here's what he had to say. Everybody has their own private Mount Everest they were put on this earth to climb. You may never reach the summit. For that you will be forgiven. But if you don't make at least one serious attempt to get above the snow line, years later you will find yourself lying on your deathbed and all you will feel is emptiness. Well, the whole point of my YouTube channel here is to help you to live in such a way that you don't experience emptiness now and at the end of your run. Okay? So I like the way he worded this. If we don't make at least one serious attempt to get above the snow line, what a picture. What a picture that is. I like the fact that he's acknowledging that we may not reach the summit. And so many people tell you you can have whatever you want. You just got to dream big. Don't let anybody get in your way. You do whatever you have to do. It can be yours. But truly, if we're living in reality, not everything can be ours, and not everything that we want and think that we deserve is actually good for us. God knows best what we're able to handle and what we'll do our best with. So that's why I really appreciate the way he put this. Make a serious attempt to get at least above the snow line. All right. Now, another thing he said here was that people who set off on a journey, they have this course they're charting. They want to become something. They want to do something. They have a skill they're trying to hone, a channel they're trying to create. Maybe it's just about climbing the corporate ladder. Maybe it's just about, I know I say this a lot, but it's true. Being a family man is important, okay? Maybe it's just about starting a family, being a good husband, a good father. You have all these aspirations, but we think that we need all these resources, these tools, these guides. And to some degree, you do want that. You do want to seek them out. But it doesn't mean that you're frozen until you have what you think that you have to have in place. And he calls them tools. He says a fancy tool just gives the second-rater one more pillar to hide behind. Now keep that visual in mind. He said pillar. He said pillars do not help. They hinder. The more mighty the pillar, the more you end up relying on it psychologically, the more it gets in your way. So one of the examples he gave in there, and I do hear this a lot on YouTube, is you got these people who want to start a channel and say, well, I'm gonna do it as soon as I get this camera. I ordered this camera, and when it gets in, I'll be able to start. Or people want to start a workout regimen. They say, as soon as I get all the equipment in, I can start. As soon as I get the right kind of shoes, I can start running. As soon as I find the right gym, I'll start going. As soon as I can find the right job, then I'll be somebody. And as soon as I achieve a certain financial strata, I'll know I've arrived. And these are pillars we hide behind. And he was saying here that the more successful you become, the fewer pillars, the fewer tools that you actually need. He says you'd be surprised at how little really successful people need or rely upon. So what I want to encourage you to do today is stop making excuses. If you're trying to get somewhere, if you're setting a goal, if you're aspiring to do something or become something or go somewhere, stop making excuses, stop hiding behind pillars, and just start doing. Just start moving. That's all you have to do. So that's all I'm going to say on that. I will leave a link down below for this book, Ignore Everybody. It's really good. I do suggest getting it. So the real thing I want to talk about today is something I found on Reddit. I was going through some conversations there. It's a fun place to peruse. You never know what you're going to see from day to day. It's always something different. It always amazes me. So I found this thread. And I think that this person, I'm assuming it's a girl because her name on Reddit is Apple Witch, right? Okay, so I'll just say this girl proposed something very, very noteworthy here. Here's what she said. Tell me a story of something nice a person has done for you. So many negative stories on Reddit. It makes me not want to use the internet sometimes. So tell me about an instance where something good happened, an uplifting story. It could be anything, really. And she went on to say, here, I'll start. One time I was crying in the bathroom and someone slipped underneath the stall a plate with a cookie on it. And that's very simple. Now you might be thinking, that sounds a little silly. Well, I have a feeling. I really can't imagine this happening in any other scenario than probably middle school or high school. If you're going to be crying in a bathroom stall and someone has a cookie on a plate readily available, I really can't imagine this happening anywhere else other than maybe middle school. So that's the imagery it invokes. What I like about this is that what she's conveying here is that something very simple took place, just an extended hand at a moment when she was feeling low. And at this very moment, and probably forevermore, she will feel thankful for that. It didn't take much for this other individual, to make a difference to her. And I want to encourage you, if you want to be a hero to somebody, if you want to make a difference in someone's life, and I don't think we should do everything just to be a memory in someone's mind, but you will be remembered even for the smallest of things like this, okay? And what a difference you can make in someone else's heart and mind if you just reach out and say, I hear you, I understand you, what are you going through, can I help? And I just think that's just so important to keep in mind, because if you yourself can look back on something where somebody else reached out to you and made a difference, you'll know exactly how this feels, as simple as that might be. In fact, someone responded to her and said, around the 9th grade, a new student joined our class. That new student tried to bully me, and I literally saw the whole class defend me. I didn't think people cared about me, and I only had a few friends and kept to myself, and I was quiet. I didn't realize people noticed I exist. There were 20 plus people yelling at one person and threatening to beat him up. That made me almost cry. So, there's people out there who you have no idea what's going on the inside of them. You have no idea how they're struggling. I think everybody struggles personally. I think everybody could be benefited from being listened to, being, at least you attempting to try to understand. Certainly, you know what this feels like, don't you? I do. there's a number of occasions I can speak about in which someone came to my rescue in one way or another. They could have just been there when I felt really down and were there and wanted to cheer me up, or they actually literally physically came to my defense. One time I remember, and this is kind of silly, so you might don't be afraid to laugh at it or laugh at me when you hear this, but when I was a young boy, I went to the YMCA a lot there in Peru, Indiana. And we were in the locker, I was in the locker room one day, and there's some other boys there whom I did not know. And I think we might have been around 10, 11 years old, maybe. And in the locker room, there was this door that was kind of jimmied open a little bit that wasn't normally. And the boys, and these two of the boys were like, come here, come here. I was like, what? And they go, look at this. So I went over, and they cracked the door open a little more, and it was the women's locker room on the other side of the door. And they were like, we're going to wait here and watch the women that come in. Now, I don't know how I had such a good conscience back then, but I was trying to do the right thing. And so I shut the door. And when you shut that door, it locks. They could not open it back up, and they were so mad at me. And they threatened me physically. They said they were going to get me when they got out of the YMCA. And I was scared to death. There was two of them. And they followed me. They got outside the YMCA. In fact, we were right across the street from it, and they had cornered me, and I was so scared. And this man drove up, stopped his car right in front of them, got out, came to my defense and asked them what they're doing and told them to leave me alone. And I tell you, I don't know who he was, but he was like an angel in disguise. And I was ever so grateful, but it's a memory that stuck with me forever. And I felt like he saved my life. I doubt there's much he could do. Looking back on it now, I kind of can't blame him for being so mad at me. Now, it was not right for them to come after me physically, but now I'm just kind of beating myself up for having closed the door. But I certainly understand why they felt the way they felt, because, I mean, what kind of opportunity like that comes along for a boy? I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying, listen, let's be real here. What boy wouldn't like that? And I probably would have too, but I might have saved all of us from getting into more trouble. So who knows? But there's been other occasions. I remember when I was in school at the same city, Peru, Indiana, and I went to a school that was kindergarten through 12th grade. So I was used to seeing my two older brothers and my younger brother in the same school. And I was 4 and 5 years younger than them. And there's the biggest guy in school was a bully, and he used to pick on us all the time. I was in the library, and he was bullying me, and my oldest brother came to my rescue and got into a fist fight with him. And my brother had never done that to me. In fact, my two older brothers were the people I fought with. They're the ones who picked on me. In fact, my oldest brother, he was the one that would usually hurt me all the time. Now he's coming to my defense. And yeah, he was kind of like my hero then. But being someone's hero is not all about coming to someone's rescue physically. It could just be, like I said before, just taking the time to listen to somebody and hear them out, and might be all they need, but it'll make an intense difference in their life, and they probably won't forget you, and it'll give them something to be thankful for. I think I've said enough about that. I came across an article in a book, a small article, that talked about comic book heroes that will never make it to the screen. And I'm going to tell you about them here now, and you're going to understand why they won't. They're horrible. Do you watch Marvel and DC movies? Now, when I was a kid, if I could have looked into the future and seen what they were going to have nowadays, I would have been just flabbergasted. I loved Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman and all that, especially Wonder Woman. Linda Carter, yeah. So I still love her. And my wife knows about it. She's okay with that because Linda Carter's quite a bit older now. She doesn't feel as threatened, but Lord have mercy if I could go back in time. Anyway, I used to love all these comic book heroes. And, you see what they've done with Batman compared to what he was in the 60s. Well, I really don't watch comic book movies anymore. I'm kind of sick and tired of them. But here are some comic book superheroes that will never make it to the big screen. All right, listen to these. The first one's called The Dog Welder from DC Comics. This is back in 1997. Have you ever heard of, if you've heard of any of these, tell me down below. If you've ever purchased a comic book and read about them, and tell me what you thought. The Dog Welder, a mute superhero in a welding mask who traps stray dogs in back alleys and then uses his welding tools to weld them to the faces of bad guys. What? Doesn't even make any sense. Okay. Anyway, Big Bertha. You've heard of her? I've heard of a few people called Big Bertha. But this is from Marvel Comics 1989. A morbidly obese mutant who can manipulate her body weight and can get as fat as she wants, growing stronger and more invincible as she does. She slims down by power puking, expelling most of her fat. All right, Squirrel Girl, Marvel Comics, 1992. She can control and communicate with squirrels. Her sidekick, Monkey Joe. Monkey Joe is a squirrel, by the way. Why not? Why not? My wife thinks that she can communicate with the cats and the dogs. I mean, most girls think they can, right? But this girl, she can literally communicate with squirrels. I guess they do. You know, you've heard of flying monkeys. You've heard of flying squirrels. I don't know if these squirrels flew or not, but that's kind of weird. Okay, Gunfire from 1993. This is a DC comic. He can excite the atoms in any object to create an explosive force that essentially turns anything he touches into a gun. That doesn't even sound like fun. I mean, yeah, whatever. Brother Power the Geek, 1968. It's a DC comic. He was a mannequin dressed in hippie clothes until he was struck by lightning. Isn't that how it usually starts with a lot of these superheroes? They get struck by lightning. He was struck by lightning and came to life. He also runs incredibly fast and can't feel pain. A mannequin. Here's another one, Tar Baby from Marvel Comics, 1985. A homeless street punk with a mohawk, a studded leather jacket, and a superpower. His body releases a tar-like substance that makes him able to stick to anything. Believe it or not, I think I've known a few people like this from school in Peru, Indiana. Anyway, Dead Girl from Marvel Comics, 1991. She's a zombie, but she can reanimate herself into a live human whenever she likes. Well, then why does she just turn herself into a zombie permanently? Like, who wants to be a zombie? I don't know. I don't know why you would opt to turn into a zombie. Zeitgeist from Marvel Comics 2001. He vomits acid. Well, I mean, how many times do you do that before, like, I'm kind of tired of this, right? The Red Bee from Quality Comics, 1940. I've never even heard of Quality Comics, but this is from 1940. Dressed in red and yellow stripes to resemble a bee, his ability was being able to control a highly intelligent bee that he stored in a pouch behind his belt buckle. The Red Bee made the bee sting bad guys. The bee's name is Michael. From DC Comics in 1984, there was a hero called Vibe. Formerly a Detroit gang leader named Paco Ramon. By day, he's now a breakdancer. By night, he's Vibe, a superhero with the power to shoot intense vibrational waves that knocks down bad guys. From Marvel Comics in 1997, we have Maggot. This blue-skinned humanoid serves as host to two cat-sized maggots called Eenie and Meanie. They can eat anything. So Maggot releases them, and when they burrow back into his body, the nutrients in the food they just ate gave Maggot his super strength. From Quality Comics, once again, 1942, is Kid Eternity. Once dead and then revived by St. Peter, Kid Eternity has the ability to summon any hero, be they from history or mythology. Oh. What if you could make that into a movie? From DC Comics in 1990, Danny the Street. This one I thought was one of the most absurd ones. His power. He's a living chunk of pavement that can become part of any street or sidewalk, enabling him to spy on anyone. In human form, he's a teleporting cross-dresser. I'm surprised they haven't brought him back. From Marvel Comics in 1992, The Almighty Dollar. This one's pretty absurd too. Mild-mannered accountant J. Pennington Pennypacker went to what he thought was a self-esteem building retreat, only to have a mad scientist kidnap him. The madman's experiments turned Pennypacker into the Almighty Dollar. One of his powers? He can shoot pennies out of his wrist. From Pacific Comics in 1983, Skate Man. After returning home from fighting in the Vietnam War, Billy Moon's best friend is murdered by bikers. That was a theme a lot, especially the 1970s, wasn't it? But also, anyway, Billy Moon's best friend was killed by bikers, so Billy starts dispensing vigilante justice on roller skates. No. From Marvel Comics in 1976, Jack of Hearts. As a boy, Jack Hart's scientist father accidentally doused him in zero fluid, which gave him super abilities. But they were powerful for him. It says, this is what it says, but they were powerful for him to control. So in order to him, I think they were meant to say they were too powerful for him to control. So in order not to hurt himself or his friends, he spends his life in a containment suit that makes him look like the Jack of Hearts from a deck of cards. The suit is also decorated with little hearts. That's lame. Now this one is interesting. From DC Comics, 1989. Arm Fall Off Boy. He can detach his limbs and use them to hit bad guys with. Why would you detach your own arms to hit bad guys with? Like, what does he use to hit them with? Does he have to use one arm to use the other arm, or can he use both arms at the same time? What? I don't know. But this really conjures a lot of questions in my mind. Like, I've had fantasies about ripping other people's arms off and beating them with it, but not my own arms. These are horrible superpowers. From Marvel Comics in 1977 is Razorback, a muscular 6'8" truck driver from Arkansas named Buford Hollis, of course, right? Buford Hollis puts an oversized, electrified Razorback pig head over his own head in order to fight crime. He has the ability to drive any vehicle known to man. Somebody named Buford would put animal skin over their head, I believe. Just, even if they weren't trying to hide their identity, I think they just would. People from Polk County would do it, for sure. He has the ability to drive any vehicle known to man. Isn't that most guys? I know how to almost drive any vehicle known to man. At least I think I do. And the last one is Mogo from DC Comics 1985. The member of the Green Lantern Corps that helps that character defend the universe against evil. Mogo isn't a human or animal, it's a sentient planet. This was probably the hardest one for me to understand. Don't know the point. But anyway, those are weird superheroes. Ones that will never make it to the big screen. But don't forget, listen, I don't want to make this video all about you being a hero, right? That's not the whole reason for being beneficent. It's not the whole reason for being kind. I want to remind you guys the main point of this whole thing was don't be afraid to reach out, make someone else's day. You know, understand that there are people out there who are really going through stuff. And just a little bit of something from you might go a long ways. And take the time to be thankful for when someone did that for you. All right? Leave a comment down below. Talk about that a little bit. All right? consider donating to the channel. You don't have to, but it'd be greatly appreciated. And yeah, I think that's about it, guys. I've enjoyed this. I hope you have too. I will catch you on the next one, all right? In the meantime, be wise.